Welcome to the Action Law Enforcement Video Magazine, your living window on the world of law enforcement training and equipment. My name is Dennis Tueller, and it's my privilege to be your host. Unlike other media, this video format gives you a front row seat to valuable live action training segments, as well as informative reviews of some of the top products currently available in the law enforcement industry. John Farnham of Defense Training International will show you how more realistic training helps you get the most out of your officers. Beretta USA's Brian Felter presents various handgun techniques, including ready positions and touch indexes. Tom Marks of Uncle Mike's will discuss options and strategies associated with plainclothes concealed carry. And I will be taking you through Action Target's Modular Armored Tactical Combat House, or MATCH, to help demonstrate some tactics and techniques for use in close quarters armed confrontations. In addition to the training segments, we will introduce the Pager Pal, an interesting new idea in concealed carry technology. Sentry Solutions will teach you how to get longer life and better performance out of your guns. Uncle Mike's will demonstrate their Sidekick line of police holsters. You'll see a demonstration of the Rapid Rotation Baton, one of the newest impact tools available to law enforcement. And Action Target will present its Total Containment Bullet Trap, the state-of-the-art solution to your bullet control and disposal needs. Often one of the more challenging aspects of firearms training is generating a desire on the part of the officers to want to come and participate. Well, I recently had a chance to talk with John Farnham at the annual training conference of the International Association of Law Enforcement Firearms Instructors, which was held in Mesa, Arizona. John and I talked about that, as well as what police administrations can do to help enhance and improve the quality of the firearms training in their agencies. We also discussed the apparent increase and prevalence of violence in our society. We read the newspapers, watch television news reports. We certainly get the impression that violence is getting worse.
This so-called increasing violence all makes good press, of course, but violence has always been there, always will be there, and police officers and police departments are paid to confront it. We're supposed to confront violent people, so the tax-paying citizens don't have to. That's what a police department is for. In many cases, the mayors and the city councils of a town don't want to hear about crime because they think of this is a nice place people live. We don't have crime here, do we? It's almost as if they're begging the question. They want you to say, no, of course not. There's a nice place. And when crime comes along and we have these statistical reports, they really don't want to hear it. So what do we have to do? I guess we all have to have a reality check. We have to say, I know you don't want to hear this, but I have to tell you anyway. And I know that bearers of bad news don't get promoted very often. That's a problem, isn't it, Chief? Because here we have people that are interested in their own careers and want to get promoted. Well, bearers of bad news don't get promoted very often. And so we like to round off the corners, and we like snow falling on an unpleasant scene. Pretty soon it's all just white and fluffy and looks a lot nicer. But the sharp corners are underneath, and the snow will be gone pretty soon. We'll be right back where we started. I think we have to look at things squarely and understand no matter how nice a town you have, police officers can get killed in this town as easy as they get killed in any other town. Our officers have got to be trained to meet worst-case scenarios and confront in effective ways the worst kind of violence imaginable, no matter where they work. It goes with the territory, and chiefs everywhere have got to realize this, that training for effectively dealing with violent people does not confine itself to places where there's lots of violence. Because when I get asked the question after giving this impassioned presentation, which I've just shared with you, the retort, of course, is, oh, come on, John, how often are officers really killed around here? Well, the answer is only once. You know, that's how often they're killed. And from the standpoint of, oh, well, we'll just hire more. Well, I suppose that's fine, but what about the person who got hurt? And what about his or her family? And what about the pain they're suffering? That's what the people in the training business have got to address. And there are people who worry about statistics, and there's people who worry about trends and all that. Those of us in training worry about tiers, and we count them one at a time. And we have to do that. And when we stop doing that, I think we're poor trainers.
John, in your opinion, how important is it that the chief or other top officials participate with the officers in their training?
It's hard for me to imagine how anything could be more important than the chief, him or herself, getting down there and training with their officers, not only in firearms, but in all kinds of training. Heaven knows, being a chief of police is a difficult job, and it's a kind of job where you're dealing with emergencies all the time, and when the shooting exercise goes down, heaven knows you can find something else to do, Chief. I mean, there's lots of things that you could, lots of plausible excuses that would be accepted by anyone for you not being there. But I hope, if I'm talking with a chief of police right now, you realize how important that is, for them to see you there, for them to see you do well and do poorly, and hit shots and miss shots. I know it's important to lead by example, but you're not going to hit with every shot. And sure, you're going to get down there and maybe even look foolish, heaven forbid. That's okay. We all look foolish now and then. But for them to see you there and leading by example and struggling to improve your skills, just as all your officers do, it's hard for me to imagine anything can be more important. I know you can think of other things to do, but few things that you could be doing at that particular moment are as important as you being there with your people, inspiring them, leading them, and infecting them with your contagious enthusiasm.
John, are there any secrets to getting officers involved and helping them develop that desire and actually have them want to train?
If you look at these commercial concerns that concerns themselves with what they call accelerated learning, I think some of that is probably mostly fluff. But one thing I have noticed, at least in the companies which are successful through these accelerated learning programs with great success, is what I call, or anyway, that's a word that has been coined, and probably the most appropriate term, they have an emotional hook. I don't think in the brief time we have to work with officers, we are going to be effective without getting an emotional hook and bringing them into our training. We have certain training goals. We'd like our officers to be able to do this. It can be very dry or it can be very exciting. And the way to make it exciting and interesting, I think, is to hook them emotionally. To expand on that a little bit, we have certain techniques in training that involve competition between officers, between teams of officers, where they're actually racing another officer or another team of officers. That's an example of an emotional hook, where they get an emotional involvement, they get an emotional stake in doing well. There are certain pieces of apparatus which are just perfect for this. For instance, the pneumatic steel targets are perfect for this. For running, we do relay races and we do duels where officers are actually competing. That's a good example of an emotional hook that gets them interested and gets them enthused. And before long, they're so interested in what they're doing, they forget their training. And they become very goal-oriented. Golly, I got to do this. I'm tired of looking or coming in toward the rear of the pack here. I want to do better at this. And pretty soon, they're doing exactly what we want them to do because they want to do it, because they've got an emotional stake in doing well. It's something I think we all need to understand, that in the few hours, the precious few hours we have to spend with them, if we devote that completely to a bunch of dry lecture and a bunch of dry static training, we'll never make nearly the progress that we will. If we make the training more interesting with that emotional hook and draw them in and give them a stake in their own performance, we can make far better use of the time we have. And we can tell we're doing well because, as you mentioned, as the time draws to a close, they're all saying, oh, can't we do this more? I need to do this again. I'm not happy with the way I'm doing here. When I hear an officer telling me that, I know we've got a good training program, because the officer is pleading with me to give him or her more time. That's great. When they're all looking at their watch and saying, oh, Christ, how much more time do we have to, can we leave now? Then I know our training program is probably pretty poor, and we probably need to improve it. So we better confront a reality here. We can't run a police department without money. We can't run a police department on fairy dust. If you want a police department, it's going to cost you money, and I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. If you want a training program that's going to work well, enthusiasm is the start. Without enthusiasm, we're running in place. But it's going to cost you money. We need decent training equipment. We need a legitimate range facility where we can do the kinds of things we need to do. Sure, I suppose you can spend money foolishly on equipment, but you have to understand that it's going to require ammunition, and it's going to require a decent range facility, and it's going to require good and imaginative and decent range equipment, and it's going to cost money, and there's no way around that. So let's just resolve ourselves to the fact that we need to spend our money wisely, and we need to spend our money correctly, but we need to spend money on this. It's not going to happen without that. All the enthusiasm in the world is not going to make up for a lack of the equipment and the facilities we need to do good training.
We certainly want to thank John Farnham for taking the time to share those great ideas with us. If you would like to contact Mr. Farnham, he can be reached at the following address. John Farnham at Defense Training International, Post Office Box 9017, La Porte, Colorado 80535. Telephone area code 970-482-2520.
For the past 11 years, One Magazine has focused on the pulse of the law enforcement industry. One Magazine with relevant articles and important up-to-date information, providing a critical lifeline to law enforcement personnel and departments across the country. Like no other industry publication, Police and Security News powerfully delivers its message into the hands of those who need and use it most. Subscribe now to Police and Security News. After all, what good is critical information if you never get it?
Strike with the impact you expect from a solid straight baton. Block with the security and control you expect from a side-handle baton. Be extremely formidable when fighting in close. And feel confident that this baton is both easy to learn and easy to use. Introducing the Rapid Rotation Baton System, the perfect hybrid of intermediate weaponry. The Rapid Rotation Baton is ergonomically designed to work with officers who carry them, not against them. Its patented tactical design is built to fill the gap that exists between straight and side-handled batons. Most officers know that real fights involve both blocking and striking techniques, and a baton must respond rapidly to the changing circumstances. Only the Rapid Rotation Baton is able to strike and defend quickly and confidently. As a blocking tool, the Rapid Rotation Baton is effectively wielded with the use of only one hand. The baton is held tight to the forearm by finger pressure on the counter pressure device. When the baton rotates to striking position, it is held firmly by the baton's main body. The baton is mostly concealed while in the shielded forearm position. The Rapid Rotation Baton measures 23 1/2 inches in length. It weighs 1 pound. It has a striking diameter of 7/8 of an inch, slightly thinner than most solid batons on the market. A smaller diameter guarantees more pounds of force per square inch on impact. The baton is constructed of injection molded nylon, making it durable in all weather conditions and virtually unbreakable. Nothing in this baton is made of metal. This baton will never require maintenance. The Rapid Rotation Baton is great for fighting in confined spaces and in close fighting. 3 striking heads make this baton formidable at various distances. But what's most important, is that this baton is easy to learn. Only 2 hand positions account for the entire system of blocks, strikes, and thrusts. The baton also supports a variety of subject control techniques. The innovation of this system does not stop with the baton itself. Using firearm safety holster technology, RRB Incorporated developed the first safety holster for an impact weapon. This holster holds the baton firmly against the officer's body and away from the legs, allowing you to wear the baton at all times. Your hands are free when entering or exiting the vehicle. You no longer have to remember to ring your baton. Running, climbing, and sitting are made easy while you wear the rapid rotation baton. The holster is quickly loaded by pushing the baton into the breakaway mold. It securely snaps into place. To retrieve the baton, the hand fits around the holster. With a quick break of the snap and a downward push, the baton is rapidly dispatched into a defensive shielding position, ready for a defensive encounter. The holster is designed to fit a variety of belt sizes. The pivotal belt loop design allows the baton to be easily retained, and it can be positioned for maximum comfort. The Rapid Rotation Baton System is the only complete intermediate weapon system to offer a rapid draw into both offensive and defensive positions, maximum retainability both in and out of the holster, a positive public image, a lifetime warranty, standardized course and certification training, competitive pricing with price breaks for large purchases. To get your own rapid rotation baton, or for more information on the system, call toll-free 888-302-2866. Purchase orders and credit cards are accepted.
The effective use of a handgun begins with sound fundamentals. Brian Felter of Beretta USA offers us the following advice.
Hi, I'm Brian Felter from Beretta USA Corporation. Today we're going to look at a few techniques, reference to how we teach our people in the basic stance and a number of other things. Let's start first with our stance. Our stance should be, has some spring in our knees, should be slightly aggressively forward. We should be locked into our stance and behind our gun. Very well locked into our stance and behind our gun, that type of situation. When we come down to a ready position, let's talk about our head movement for a second. We keep the gun where it is. Let's talk about our head movement. A lot of people like to look left or right, either way, back and forth, that type of thing. Let's bring our head movement, let's make it a little bit quicker. Let's bring our head movement up, around, that type of thing, a little bit quicker. Instead of moving left, right, or right and left, that type of thing, let's make it quicker. Look around real quick, get around behind you, get back on target, that type of thing. When you're in that ready position, always be set, be aggressively in your stance. Now, as you bring it up to fire the weapon, that type of situation, lock into it, then come back down into whatever ready position you're going to use. When you disengage from the stance, just don't go soft on it, but disengage from it. Bring your hand back, bring the gun back, keep watching the situation, then do whatever you need to do, reference to the holster, and stand easy on the line. We're teaching people from the beginning to get aggressively involved in this, to become proficient in not just standing there and shooting, as in target shooting, but to getting involved with our gun. One of the first and foremost techniques that I think is good to bring a student up to that ability where they start thinking, I can control this situation, is to start with the touch indexes, because I think the touch indexes are very important. What we're doing is merely touching our gun. Now, the gun that I have it in a holster. It's just a straight-in holster, a non-security holster, but whatever you have, once the arm, such as this, there's 3 of them that I like to use, but once the arm touches the gun, moves right back up the body, and you know where that gun is. You're in touch with it. When you're in any type of interview stance, that type of thing, with your gun back, when you approach, suddenly there's something there, all of a sudden you've touched your gun. You're giving that student that ability to know where that gun is. Several others, you can put a finger in here, such as this, with your arm resting on the gun, or one of the favorites, with the fist back here and clutching it. You're either ready to hit or you're ready to draw and do whatever's required. Excuse me. But a touch index is very important. You're elevating them one more step in the process. They're not looking paranoid. They're looking very professional, but they're also very prepared, okay? And so in this situation, when you touch index, you're that much closer to the situation at hand. We know the quickest draw is a gun already in the hand, but as you get closer to that, this is a very good one. We bring our hands up, get aggressively behind the gun, and we come down into a ready position. And again, when we disengage, we don't just suddenly stop, let our guns go down into the holster, that type of thing. When we disengage, after we fired and come back down, when we looked around, when we disengage, keep your hand up here, come back down, still keep looking, holster, and at that juncture, you're through. We start aggressively into this thing, we get behind our gun with purposeful intent, and we continue all that way through a training exercise. We just don't throw ammunition down range, we just don't make brass. What we're doing is getting behind and training 100% with our people. Also, let's talk about reloading for a second. So I want to talk about reloading for a couple of seconds. That when you reload, at some juncture, when you're firing the weapon and you come down, at some juncture you're going to reload. When you reload, don't hold it out, don't hold it straight up, but bring it into your body. We're talking touch indexes, the arms, where they rub inside of your body. When you bring it down, come down, it's time to reload or do a tactical reload. All of a sudden you come down, do whatever's required, right here within your power, instead of out here, but back down in your power, watching the situation, doing whatever reloading is required, and still staying hard as you finish, okay? That type of situation. And that way, what we're training them, every time they perform the stroke, the firing stroke, bringing the gun up and firing, every time they go back, we're training them to stay hard from the beginning of the situation to the end of the situation, to stay tactically appropriate for what is required, okay? And that way, you're bringing them up another level. We cannot let them go soft. We must keep them in the full situation. That way, we're getting more toward training toward 100%. Okay, and I hope that answers a couple of things. And this is Brian Felter, Breda USA Corporation. Thank you.
I'm here with Steve, president of the Pager Pal Holster Company. Steve, we're here at the ILIPI conference, and obviously you've got one of the great hits of the show.
Thanks.
Tell me a little bit about your company and this new innovative product you've got here.
The Pager Pal holster is a concealed holster method that allows a person to carry a concealed weapon anytime they're dressed out and about, plain clothes, undercover, off duty. It works excellent. If you have pants on, you can carry a gun, and you have very quick access and a lot of comfort.
How did you come up with this concept?
Out of necessity. I live in Dallas. I wanted to carry daily, and you don't wear coats, and I don't like fanny packs. I wanted to be able to carry a weapon and not look armed.
Are you carrying a weapon now?
I am.
Well, why don't you go ahead and show us how it works here.
You pull the pager up, draw the weapon. It's a paddle-type holster. The weapon lays in the front like this. Goes against your body. This covers the print. Pager attaches to it like that. Drops inside your pants. No one knows you have a weapon. When you sit down, it just folds up. To access the weapon, you simply slide up, draw the weapon. It can also be done as a one-hand draw. You simply pull up with one hand and draw the weapon. When you sit, it just folds up on your leg thusly. What do you think? I don't look armed, right?
I think it's a great innovation for law enforcement officers throughout the country. How do we get in touch with you?
You can call Pager Pal at 1-800-561-1603 or write us at 200 West Pleasant View in Hurst, Texas, 76054, and we'll send you a catalog.
Tell us real quick about what we can expect. Pager Pal runs how much?
They're between $40 and $50, depending on how and when you order it, and whether you mail order it or buy it at one of our dealers at a gun store or shooting range.
Well, I think it's a great product, and we look forward to seeing them probably all over the country.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Action Target's Total Containment Trap, or TCT, was designed to incorporate the strengths of the various bullet trap technologies while eliminating the negatives. The Total Containment Trap is the most advanced, most effective, and safest bullet collection and disposal system available today. The TCT's gently sloping plates glide bullets into the deceleration chamber without fragmenting the bullets on impact or subjecting the shooter to any splatter or ricochet. This safe capture is achieved without any water, oil, granules, or any other foreign material whatsoever. After the bullet has been safely directed into the deceleration chamber, it is free to break up without any danger to the shooter. As the bullet's energy is removed, two things happen. First, the large pieces of lead, metal jackets, wads, and other debris fall harmlessly into canisters located at the bottom of the trap. These canisters provide a safe and convenient way to collect and dispose of lead waste. Simply remove the canister, hammer on the lid, and take it to your recycler. You never have to touch the lead at all. It is interesting to note that a department using the Total Containment Trap now gets 16 cents a pound for its lead because it comes off the TCT so clean. Second, the lead dust and other fine particles that are too light to fall to the bottom of the trap are immediately vacuumed away by our TCT dust collection unit. This unit is equally effective on both indoor and outdoor ranges and uses its own economical filters to clean the air from the trap before it is exhausted, thereby reducing wear and stress on your expensive indoor range ventilation system filters. The TCT vacuum system also helps to maintain the negative pressure required downrange for safe and healthy airflow. The Total Containment Trap is a modular, freestanding unit that requires no additional support from your building or range structure. Its components can be carried through normal man-sized doors to facilitate easy installation, even on older ranges. Many indoor and outdoor ranges have been equipped with the Total Containment Trap with the same superior results. The TCT is rated to handle all types of handgun rounds, shotgun rounds, high-powered rifle rounds, even armor-piercing rounds, and military tracer rounds. The Air Force has even conducted testing with automatic weapons and .50 caliber rounds with no damage to the trap. Action Target's Total Containment Trap is the only complete answer to your bullet collection and storage needs and offers the ultimate in protection. The TCT protects shooters by eliminating dangerous splatter, ricochet, and lead dust buildup. It protects the environment by collecting lead fragments into sealable containers, by vacuuming and filtering lead dust, and by refusing to incorporate hazardous byproducts like rubber, oil, or contaminated water. Finally, it protects your budget by eliminating high maintenance, cleaning, and service costs. The Total Containment Trap by Action Target, your total bullet trap solution.
Officers working non-uniform assignments and off-duty officers in plain clothes who find themselves involved in an armed confrontation meet with some unique challenges. Tom Marks of Uncle Mike's will share with us some of his ideas and concepts for concealed carry.
Hello, I'm Tom Marks with Michaels of Oregon. And what we're going to talk about this afternoon with the group here at the LATC program is we're going to talk about alternatives to conventional holsters for carrying firearms in a concealed manner. Generally, probably the most accepted and the most recognized form of carrying a gun in something other than a holster, what we've been talking about so far today, has been something like this, a fanny pack. Fanny packs come in all shapes and sizes and have been around for at least 10 years now. One of the difficulties, however, is because they have been around for such a long period of time, is that they're quite often looked upon as gun-carrying devices. Generally, if you are in relatively good shape, have short hair, have a fanny pack on, people sort of assume what it is you do for a living. And I'm sure most of you that work the street as well as serve as instructors tend to look at a bag like this as something a gun is in, whether there is one there or not. If, however, this is still the chosen method of carry off-duty or perhaps in a particular job role, what you might want to look at is a bag that isn't a dead giveaway when it's looked upon in a street situation. We tend to make these bags in various sizes, different materials, and various colors as well. We make them, in our case, in about 4 colors, and some of the other manufacturers do much the same. But people still tend to buy the black, and it looks policey, and it gives you away anyhow. If you want to try and minimize that, however, there are other things that can be looked upon also. First of all is how the bag itself performs and how the weapon is produced. Drawstrings tend to be a dead giveaway. Drawstrings are a problem because in a sport bag or in a camera bag, a drawstring isn't going to exist. Most people don't need to rip open their camera bag and produce their Nikon camera within 3.5 seconds at the sound of a whistle. Generally, drawstrings also provide a problem because they can get hooked on things. A friend of mine works for what used to be the Air Marshals, and one of his people one day stood up in an aircraft with a drawstring type bag and opened up the bag, much to the chagrin of the 4 or 5 rows worth of people around him. You want something that'll work for you, still be easy to get in and out of, but not be obviously a gun-carrying device. You also want to stop and think about everything else it is we discussed so far today. The ability to produce the gun with one hand and return the gun to whatever it is you're carrying it in with one hand. The bag provides those same kind of problems that we saw with the holsters earlier. If the bag is carried, you can experiment to see what position on the body works the best. In this case, because we've just gotten through with our discussion of alternate body positions and cross-draw positions, I'm going to put the body on my weak side. I am right-handed. This particular bag uses a Velcro closure and is merely opened by breaking the bag forward, stripping the Velcro, also popping 2 retentive snaps at the outboard end, so the Velcro never sees the load while you're walking along. But it opens cleanly with one hand, and I can produce the gun with the other. We've talked all day today about watching the muzzle of the weapon. You need to make sure in a situation like this that when people remove the gun, the muzzle is turned downward, the shooting grip is established, and the gun comes up cleanly so that the muzzle doesn't pass across the hand. That can be controlled a little bit more, perhaps in a front body carry, but as you tend to move around on the body, it can actually aggravate the situation. Teach your people to make sure they know where the muzzle is, even in an unconventional manner of producing the weapon such as this. Not only was I capable of producing the gun with one hand, but this particular design allows me to return the gun to the holster, keeping my weak hand free, and seal the bag up. My focus of attention is always forward. For those of you that saw the movie The Fugitive with Tommy Lee Jones, there is a scene in there where he loses his primary weapon and goes to a pack that he's carrying in front of him that he breaks open very dramatically. They bought that pack from a friend of mine because they wanted the most dramatic, for the camera, looking bag they could find. And since early this morning, we've been talking about how people in civilian dress applications are even more influenced by what they see in the movies and what they see in magazines than they are in uniform dress. That's what the problem was with that film. They use a bag that breaks open completely, falls down completely, and then holds the gun in place with an independent holster. Not only quite often with a separate holster body inside the pack does it take 2 hands to steady the bag and return the gun, but it certainly then takes 2 hands to seal the unit back up. When you let your people choose a device like this, make sure they can work with it as comfortably and as carefully and as one-handedly as they can, either with their duty design or some of the other holsters that we've looked at so far today. With the fact that a pack like this tends to be a giveaway as far as a gun-carrying device, there has been a real move in the industry to look for other means. This particular bag, something else that we offer in about 4 different colors and in this denim, was something that we worked up a couple years ago to be even less obtrusive. We make this in different sizes, and I'll show you why in a second, in different colors. The green, for those of you from here up in the Pacific Northwest, looks like something you'd throw a pair of binoculars in. We obviously make black because of the popularity of the color. We make a gray that looks like a camera case, and the denim because it's sort of low-key. This particular thing doesn't look like a fanny pack. Fact, this is something that most people don't even give a second glance to. The original design was made with a pocket on the front that was big enough for a pair of handcuffs, something we discussed this morning, the importance of carrying handcuffs in a plainclothes or off-duty manner. It has a slip pouch in the back for IDs and basically zips open and allows you to throw your wallet or keys or whatever else it is you want in the front, where the instruction book here is in this one. But it also allows you, because of the false back panel, to carry a small revolver or a small pistol. This particular one will actually take guns as large as, say, a 6906 or a Glock 19. This particular one, which is in the materials you got in your folder, was originally made for the government for a couple of years before we introduced it across the board. And this one was made for the federal government, which is why it's referred to as a federal gun mate. Bigger compartment on the front for a banknote type ID, and basically, again, room to carry anything you want in the front. Fact is, what the agency we made these for originally was doing was leaving the bags open purposely. They would drop a flip phone in the front or a Bausch & Lomb sunglass case in the front and leave it open. Now if somebody's coming up and nosing around and thinks there might be a gun in whatever it is you're wearing, all they're seeing is the phone or whatever else is up front taking space. They don't see, however, the full-size service pistol that fits into the back, which is what it was designed to take. The larger of the two cases will take, like a Glock 17, I'll take a 5906, they'll take any of the full-size autos that are out there. It's a very low-profile alternative. I had a gentleman come up to me the other night during vendor's night that I was familiar with because of a letter he had written to the factory. He travels around the world on behalf of the federal government here in the U.S. and uses this all the time. He mentioned to me that no matter where he goes, he never gets so much as a second look for this type of device. People just look at it casually and look the other way. It's low profile, and in the colors it comes in, it's something people don't expect to fire a firearm installed within. Sir?
Is that attached to your body or what?
This has two loops on the back, so you basically thread it through the belt that you're wearing. It doesn't have an additional belt, but it's got two loops on the back. We've done some, not cataloged, we've done some with D-rings on it so you can strap it as well. But I'm a little leery about that for general use. One of the other questions that comes up in the programs we've been doing is, what about purse holsters for women? I'm a little reluctant to recommend purse holsters because purses are obviously a target of attack. Now people aren't trying to steal your gun, they're just trying to steal your purse. I don't think it's a good idea to carry the gun in a purse holster, even some of the ones that are specially designed. Some of the straps have been reinforced to resist attack, but quite often all the reinforcements do is dislocate your shoulder, or the ones with the steel cords on the inside cause damage to the arm. The other problem with purses is they get left behind. They get left in restaurant booths when people go to the restroom. They get left in vehicles because you don't want to carry them inside. And looking at the number of states now that have very strong rules and laws governing unattended weapons or unsecured weapons, where most of you might go home and take your service weapon and lock it in a drawer, or take, well, we were talking before about the paddle holsters, take the whole assembly off and lock it up in a cabinet. The tendency with the purse is to sort of set it down because you've come home and set everything down when you got through at work. You've got to keep that in mind if you make those kind of recommendations. Men are starting to find the same problems because of the interest in portfolios and daytimer cases with holsters on the inside. The tendency is to leave it sitting on your desk unattended and not treat it as though there is a deadly weapon inside. For those of you, and we sometimes joke about people that are the white-collar police that leave their guns in their briefcases, if you're faced with that back in the office that you work with, why don't you tell your people to look for a briefcase that will accept the gun and make it readily accessible to them? There are numerous briefcases out there with either slip compartments or sealed off compartments where the hand can be driven through it and the weapon can be produced if necessary, rather than having it locked up inside the case where nobody's ever going to get to it if they need it. Again, however, you've got to make sure that you tell your people that it is a serious instrument. It is something that is part of their responsibility with the job and not something to be left behind at the desk or left behind in the trunk of the car to be stolen when they've walked away from it. Well, that's a little bit of a talk today on non-conventional methods of carrying firearms concealed, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.
Have you ever heard of using a dry film solid synthetic lubricant on your gun before? Sounds kind of strange, doesn't it? But you are more familiar with this concept than you think. A non-stick synthetic film was probably used on the fry pan that you cooked your eggs in this morning. Sentry Solutions has developed lubrications for many products in the sporting industry and has applied these same proven principles to firearms in Smooth Coat and Tough Cloth. Smooth Coat has some great advantages over traditional lubricants. Smooth Coat offers synthetic, dry lubrication. Lubricated surfaces resist dirt rather than attracting it like many wet types of lubricants. Smooth Coat is micro-bonded, so unlike other lubricants that tend to thicken in cold weather and thin in the heat, Smooth Coat remains constant in all climates. Because Smooth Coat is dry, cleanup is easy and fast. You simply brush the dirt and grime off the gun with a dry nylon brush. After the firearm is clean and residue-free, Smooth Coat is simply applied to all parts of the inside of the firearm by brushing, dipping, or by using the precision applicator. Only one thin coat is required, and touch-ups are also made easy with the precision applicator. To preserve the outside appearance and finish of the firearm, as well as providing superior corrosion protection, Sentry's Tough Cloth is the answer. Like Smooth Coat, Tough Cloth uses a fast-drying carrier to deliver the microparticles of synthetic lubricant evenly across the firearm without leaving any wet or sticky residue. Simply wipe down the firearm after use to restore the Sentry protection. More importantly than what we can say is what are the Sentry users saying.
My name is Randy Barnett. I'm with the Midwestern Police Department, a metro agency. I've used Sentry Solutions for about 3 years now. I use it in my personal weapons and my competition weapons, and I also use it in department weapons.
My name is Alan Brosnan, Chief Instructor and owner of the Tactical Explosive Entry School based in Memphis, Tennessee. For the last 4.5, 5 years, I've been using the Sentry Solution products, specifically the Tough Cloth and the smooth Coat there on my weapons. We teach primarily close quarter tactical shooting and room combat, skills associated with close quarter battle. My handguns, my MP5, my shotgun have all been treated with these products specifically after every shoot, before every shoot. The environment that I have to operate in is very seasonal. Weather time, we have the snow and ice and rain, and particularly in the summertime with the humidity, I find these products are very advantageous to what I'm doing.
The gun that I shoot the most in competition is a Colt 45 in IPSC shooting, a little bit of bullseye shooting, and I use the Smooth Coat as a bore treatment. Previously, I used to get a lot of lead buildup in about 3/4 of an inch in front of the chamber, and it took a lot of time to clean that lead out of the barrel. And I tried Sentry Solutions as a bore conditioner, and after about 2 applications and cleaning, my leading completely disappeared.
Obviously, as a law enforcement officer, you're responsible for your weapons, the maintenance of them, etc. That's why I strongly, encourage the use of products, of good products, that will maintain your weapon to the highest degree.
I've been in law enforcement for 20 years, and I've seen a lot of products come and go that claim to do miraculous things. My experience with Smooth Coat has been, it's been exceptional. It's done everything that they stated that it would, and I would recommend that people try it. The proof is really in the pudding. Give it a try.
Sentry Solutions is so sure that their products will outperform the others that they offer a satisfaction performance guarantee. Sentry Solutions, your guard against corrosion and wear.
the sign down in some agencies with 10.
They look the same, but they always pretty much function the same.
Immediately as you draw, start moving.
Hello, I'm Bob Bossy, ILFE's Executive Director. If you're a firearms instructor and you've been looking for an organization that was organized by firearms instructors, run by firearms instructors, for the benefit of firearms instructors, then look no further. Welcome to ILFE.
As I'm sure you know, police officers spend a good deal of their time indoors in close quarters situations. Unfortunately, precious little training time is devoted to teaching officers appropriate techniques for dealing with those kinds of situations. Action Target's Modular Armored Tactical Combat House, or MATCH for short, makes this kind of training much safer and considerably more convenient. I had the opportunity to be an instructor at the 1996 law enforcement training camp, and I was able to use an Action Target MATCH combat training house to demonstrate some of those techniques. The following are some of the things that we were able to show the officers. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking to you about and showing you some techniques for working in a tactical environment inside building structures. Some concepts on using the gun and how to best approach and deal with corners, some of the things we've learned working with people over the years. First of all, I'd like to just reemphasize the importance of applying the principles of firearm safety anywhere and everywhere. In a tactical environment, when we're moving into a potentially dangerous situation, either by ourselves or with other officers that we're working with, the last thing we need is to complicate our lives by shooting ourselves or one of our partners. Friendly fire isn't, so we don't want any friendly fire casualties. The firearm safety rules, of course, that I'm considering are Rule 1, guns are always considered to be loaded. Rule 2, don't point the muzzle at anything you are not willing to destroy. Rule 3, keep your finger off the trigger and outside the trigger guard until your sights are on the target and you've decided that you're going to fire. Rule 4, of course, is be sure of your target and the target environment, everything that's around, and is it in fact safe to take that shot. One of the first things we need to recognize when we start talking about utilizing tactics is that the more we learn and know about tactics, the less we actually want to employ them. First of all, please understand that there is no perfect way, there is no set way, there is no right or wrong way to make a tactical approach. There are a variety of different tactics and concepts that are taught. Let's share with you just a couple of them. If, for example, I need to enter a room or a doorway like this, generally speaking, and there are exceptions to every rule, but generally speaking, if I can maximize the distance between myself and the next potential danger zone, that is going to be to my advantage. If I come around the corner tight and close like this, I may be exposing less of myself, but at the same time, it's an awkward position to try to shoot from, and I'm that much closer from someone who may be hiding on this side of the wall. My personal preference is that if I can be 3 or 4 feet away from this corner, that's better than being 3 or 4 inches away from the corner. Again, in any kind of a confrontation, action beats reaction. And I want some distance and time. I want to maximize the distance from the threat. I also want to do what I can to minimize myself as a target. Well, how do I do that? Well, I can do that by making use of available cover. And again, are the walls in buildings that we're searching necessarily cover? Well, maybe not. It depends on what the structure is made of. If this is a concrete block wall, that may offer some cover. If it's sheetrock and plywood and 2x4s, that's not going to stop a lot of bullets. But consider this. I would rather have any incoming fire have to traverse that sheetrock and the 2x4s before it gets to me and my body armor. By the time it's done all that, it significantly reduces the risk that I'm going to get hurt. And this is going to at least slow down, stop, turn, impede. It might do something to that bullet to keep it from hurting me. It's going to be, the sheetrock is better than nothing. It's certainly better than just the atmosphere. Oxygen and nitrogen doesn't do a very good job of stopping bullets very quickly. So, if you can observe this corner from the vantage point of the camera, if I'm the officer trying to clear this corner, let me show you first a couple of things, errors to try to avoid. One would be coming around the corner in this fashion and letting the gun lead around the corner before I have had an opportunity to actually check and see visually what it is I have to deal with in this room. If you watch this corner, another thing to be concerned about is I may be very cognizant of the muzzle position, but I expose portions of my body, for example, my foot and leg, into the room before I've actually seen what's in here. You have to try to imagine an imaginary plane that extends down the outside of your body, and don't extend portions of your body into the room as you do that. Many of you watching this, I'm sure, are familiar with the concept of visually slicing the pie. If I'm coming around this corner into this room, the idea is each time I come around the corner a little farther, I'm getting a little bit bigger piece of that pie. And of course, every time I do that, I'm also potentially exposing myself to an additional threat. Once again, there's no perfect way to do this. Another thing to consider is your balance and movement. We find often in these kinds of scenarios, officers will try to get away from the opposite wall and maximize that distance, but in so doing, they may start dragging their body. If you can hear that noise I'm generating by dragging against the wall, those kinds of things, of course, can be a target indicator to someone who may be anticipating you entering the room. Another thing to avoid is dragging your feet. If you'll listen to this. Plus the fact that as we drag our feet, that enhances the likelihood that if there is a crack in the floor, uneven footing, that you might hook the edge of your foot on that and lose your balance. Generally speaking, it is probably better to pick the feet up and put them down, and to keep the base open and wide. That is, flex your legs, feet about shoulder width apart, lower the hips, and keep your balance. Another consideration is to try not to cross your feet. That is, stepping behind yourself as you're moving across, stepping across in front. Whenever you do that, that, of course, compromises balance as well. So try to think about a good, solid, balanced fighting stance. Again, I'm sure many of you are familiar with various techniques, and whether we're fighting with our hands or a baton or a pistol, rifle, or shotgun, a consistent, good, solid fighting stance, I think, is an appropriate way to approach the problem.
I'm Tom Marks, and I'm law enforcement director for Michaels of Oregon in Portland, Oregon. We'd like to talk about today are some of the advances that have been made over the years in Cordura, primarily laminated Cordura nylon holsters. Michaels pioneered the concept some 13 years ago of using a Cordura outer skin for a durable, at that time, sporting holster. Over the past 5 or 6 years, we have expanded that technology and created a full line of Cordura designs to be used, in this case, for outright uniform duty applications. This particular holster that I'm holding in my hand is what we refer to as our Pro 3 design. This holster employs the Cordura outer skin that we're known for, a laminated foam core to give the holster shape and body, and an Oxford cloth or a smooth finish interior to allow the gun that's contained within the holster to be produced readily and to be protected from wear. This holster also employs a Kydex formed exoskeleton and a jacket slot style belt loop. This particular one is injection molded, allows the gun to be carried, as the one on my waist, about even with the belt line, and allows it to stand off slightly from the body so that a short jacket can be dropped behind it or a longer coat can be zipped around it. This Cordura construction has become quite popular throughout the United States, not only for specialized bicycle and tactical patrols, but for day-to-day duty applications as well. About a year or so ago, Michaels realized that perhaps the Cordura wouldn't fit into as many departments as a more traditional appearing material. At that time, we began researching various materials that came from completely outside the industry and came up with our Mirage line, the style that I'm wearing on my belt. This particular design, again, is a Pro 3 holster. The belt is our Ultra Duty design, and I'm wearing a single mag pouch on the other side. This material, which while it looks like leather, is actually the same nylon fibers that are used in the Cordura designs. But instead of weaving or interlocking those fibers, they're held together in a binding agent so that we can produce a material in whatever color or surface finish we desire. Here we've basically replicated a black 10-ounce saddle grain leather. In the near future, we'll be offering this same material configuration in a basket weave, and for plainclothes applications, we'll be offering it in some browns and actually in some exotic materials. Getting back to the holster for a minute and talking about how they have evolved, this particular design, as I mentioned, is called our Pro 3. It involves 3 independent means of retention. There is a tensioning screw on this outside framework, which draws the entire framework down onto the body of the holster and allows it then to clutch along the full length of the gun, as opposed to an IPSC or a PPC holster, where a screw would have only a single contact point effect. It also employs a retention strap and thumb brake system. The retention strap here is a molded design of a conventional width, but being molded, it now allows us to get full contact and clutch solidly along the guns that don't have traditional hammer spur configurations to help retain them. We've also molded, but out of a stiff material, the thumb brake itself, so that we can put a slight curvature into it, minimizing the attempts for an attacker to blade the device open. It still is more than high enough and accessible enough for the operator of the holster to open when he chooses to, but it will not be posed to the risks of the older designs. It's also been designed, this system, so that I can close it when operate it with one hand. When the weapon is drawn from the holster, as it is here, this reinforced molded strap also won't fall in, so that the gun can be placed back with one hand, and again, so that the system can be closed up with one hand. The third retention device on this design is an internal lock, so that even when the thumb brake is undone, and even if I were to back this screw out completely, the internal lock is still completely in effect. It will permit the gun to stay locked in the holster and retained in the holster, whether it is a top grab, a front grab, a rear grab, a side grab, anything at all will keep it locked in place. It's only through the drawing operation of the weapon that it can indeed be released. What we looked for here was something that was simple. Most retention holsters revolve either a number of wrist movements or a number of straps to be undone. We looked for something that tied in basically with the way most people are taught to produce the firearm today. If it is a multi-step drawing concept that is taught in recruit training, the student here does nothing more than that. Basically breaks the thumb brake, gets his grip established, brings his elbow into the body for a straight line presentation, and he'll cam right off the lock. It is a practice move. It's something that has to be worked on, but it's something that fits much more into the normal training program than perhaps some of the other models that are out there. To replace the weapon into the holster, merely keep the shooting grip established and put it home. It'll find its own way in. As far as being able to draw the weapon, it can be drawn as quickly, as fluidly, and as smoothly as a conventional holster without the need, again, for any rocking or multiple straps or snaps to be undone. This design is pretty much where we've taken the line at this point. We've had extremely good success with this as a duty design, and in the coming year for 1997, we're going to be employing a similar locking system based on the same patents that cover this design in several concealment holsters, offering true locking retention and true additional 1990s retention for that type of carry, as well as for the duty design seen here. I thank you very much for the time today. Again, I'm Tom Marks with Michaels of Oregon in Portland, Oregon.
Criminals on the street do not behave like most targets on your range. They run, they dodge, and they don't always go down the first time you shoot them. Action Targets 3D not only simulates these factors with challenging accuracy, but it does so at a price so low you can't afford not to use them in your training. The 3D Targets concept is simple. Provide inexpensive, realistic reaction to accurately placed shots. When a shooter hits one or more of the 3 strategic hit zones, the target will fall. Shots do not hit the mark will have no effect. Sound familiar? 3Ds continue to function even after several hundred rounds, and they can be used for any type of dynamic tactical training. Your 3D target package even contains attachable arms for threat recognition and shoot, don't shoot drills. For more information or a free video on the 3D, contact the Action Target Sales Department.
Well, that's it for the first issue of the Action Law Enforcement Video Magazine. We hope this last hour has been a valuable resource for you. Each quarter, the Action Law Enforcement Video Magazine will continue to bring you the best in training, new products, and other industry news. I'm Dennis Tueller. Thank you for watching.